This review covers the 1973 Mustang. It's a 125 scale kit from MPC, number 846. Now, the fall of 1973 saw some drastic changes to the auto industry because of the Arab oil embargo. Skyrocketing gas prices along with rationing coupons and long lines at the pump for starters. It ushered in the era of gas mileage concerns and stiff foreign competition, which resulted in smaller cars and smaller engines. Now, the 73 models, already in production like this pony car, made it just under the wire. Now, this kit was originally released in 1972 and re-released in 2016 as in this boxing, and it's had many variations and boxings. There's no skill level given, but I would recommend it for the intermediate builder. It's an older mold and needs a lot of test fitting. Now, it does come with a lot of optional parts, including 2 engines and a couple of intake choices. And you've got a option for either drag with wheelie bars or extra wide rear wheels, but it doesn't have tires to match those extra wide rear wheels. So I'm going to make a combination from all 3 variations for this kit. And it'll measure 7.5 inches long, 3 inches wide, and 2.25 inches high when finished. Here are the contents of the kit. Everything's molded in white except the chrome tree and the clear parts, of course. Now, we're going to be using liquid cement, but we'll also use some super glue for fragile parts, or white glue for the windows. And please remember to heed the manufacturer safety and use guidelines when using any of the products that you see or hear used in the review. Here are the decals for the kit. They come off easily and they're pretty durable, but you're going to find that you should use some setting solution for those long stripes. But it also has some of the competition and numbered decals for the race versions. Now, as I mentioned, there's different race or different engine variations. I use the race engine here, and you start with these 2 parts on the intake and go ahead and paint the aluminum. And then I took the chrome off of the gluing surfaces for the velocity stacks and then glued those to the intake. Now we can assemble the fan and the pulleys and paint the pulleys aluminum and the belts flat black. And I used some Panaline accent from Tamiya to show a little more detail and bring out the highlights there, the chrome parts. Now glue the alternator to the pulley and the fan to the front of the pulley. Now the wheels are next, so you need to make your choice for the rims and the tires. And the tires weren't available there for the wide rim, so I had to raid my parts box for that. If not, then you'll have to use the stock tires and wheels for your assembly. Now paint the wheel backs black, then glue the outer wheels and the wheel backs to the tire into the tires for the rear, and then do the same for the fronts with the addition of the center hub. Next, we can grab the parts for the main engine portion and then glue the block halves together along with the front cover and the heads and paint that Ford blue. Now paint the transmission aluminum and add that to the engine, and then add the oil pan and the fuel pump. Get out these parts to finish the engine, and then glue the intake in place first, and then add the valve covers and the fan and belt assembly. Finally, paint the exhaust manifold steel and glue them into place. Let's work on the hood now, and you need to decide whether you want to have the stock hood or if you need to cut that a hole out of the hood. There's recesses on the bottom, so just score that with the backside of a hobby knife and finish it off with sand sticks. After you've gotten it all cleaned up to your expectations, you can prepare the hood and then paint it with your choice of body colors. Now I used Tamiya orange with a little pearl overcoat, and then I set that aside until it dried, and then applied the decals that go on the hood as well to let that set and thoroughly dry. While the hood was drying, I got these parts out for the chassis and get them ready to paint and assemble, as well as the tire and wheel package from earlier. Now paint the chassis and the rear end black, and then the stock exhaust is installed here also, so paint that steel and add it before the rear end there. And if you get if you're using that, And so now you can see that I'm not going to use it, so scrape the chrome off, if you don't as well, of the mounting points, and then add the wheelie bars. Now attach the front wheels, and lastly glue the metal axle to one of the rear wheels and slide it through the rear end, and then add the other wheel and squeeze them together. And if you notice, I've got the chassis here a little close to the heat lamp, and so to use to help cure my paint, and it started to sag a little bit on the bottom there. Don't do that. So now we'll add the motor to the chassis and the optional exhaust. So get these parts staged up, and this is one of the areas where there's a fit issue. As you can see, the exhaust pipes are a little too small, and they're kind of the wrong shape to match the manifold extensions. So I ended up cutting them back to an area that matched a little better. Now paint the exhaust pieces steel and glue the engine onto the motor mounts, and add the exhaust pipes to that. Locate these pieces for the interior, and then start by gluing the seat backs to the seats, and then finish off the seams there. Now paint the tub, the dash, seat belts, and the seats your choice of colors, and the steering wheel is a wood color with a black center and a column. Now glue the belts to the seats, and then the seats to the tub, and add the shifter to the interior tub and the steering wheel to the dash. I also decided to use the fire extinguisher, so that was painted red and glued to the center console. And now we'll turn our attention to the body and related components, so get these out and get them ready to work with. Here you can see the parting lines that are on the body that'll need to be lightly scraped and sanded off. And I used a black marker there, and so that I know that they're sanded off enough after the black lines have been removed. So you can see here the body is pretty well cleaned up and in good shape for priming. Now I deviated a little bit from the instructions, and I finished the body assembly and painted it as a unit, but the instructions say to add the glass in the interior tub now. But here you can see there's some more fit issues with the rear pan. So I used some super glue and accelerant kicker there and clamps to fit this as good as I could have. And then I also used some super glue to fill in the gaps that were left on the sides of it. So I filed and sanded it to massage the fit a little bit more, and then you may even need to add a little putty to this. Finally, I sprayed it with some primer to check the fit, and then sanded that off and another coat of primer, and it looks pretty good at that point. When the primer was dry, I painted the body, and then after the color coat had dried, which by the way, again, I used the Tamiya orange and an orange pearl overcoat, and then the decals went on using some decal setting solution to make sure they fit to the contours. And then I sprayed 3 coats of 2-part automotive clear coat on it. After the body was dry, I added the glass and the interior. I put the glass in with some white glue so that it wouldn't show up on the windows, and if you get a little extra on there, you can just clean it off with water. And then the interior bucket was located, and the glue points were glued into position. Now we'll work with the grill insert. So scrape off any chrome or paint where the insert's going to be glued into the front end there, and then glue it to the nose of the body. And even though it looks like it's clear here, it's just because of the reflection, but it's a solid piece. Now if you choose to do the Grand Am racing version, add the front number markers where the headlights would normally have been. There are a lot of options at this step in construction depending on the version of the car that you want to build, so check them very carefully here. Now I used the rear louvers, spoiler, bumper, taillights, and the rear panel as mostly a stock type of street racer. The spoiler and the louvers were painted in semi-gloss black, and the rear panel received a black wash treatment. Now that's, a 50-50 mix of paint and thinner. Now glue the red taillight lenses in from the back of the rear panel and then glue this to the rear of the car. Now glue on your other optional parts as you desire. We'll move to the other end, so get these parts as well, and we can complete the body. Now paint the radiator horns and the battery black and glue those accessories to the radiator support and glue it into place on the chassis. Remember, remove any paint from where you want to glue it so that it sticks. Now add the body and the hood to the chassis starting at the rear end as it sits inside the rear of the body. And finally, add the bumpers. Again, remove any chrome or paint, headlights, and grille inserts, which fit fairly loosely. One of the pluses for this kit are all the extra parts that you're going to have left over for your parts stash. Now, take your time, and it goes together pretty well. I also had a number of decals left over, mostly, for the racing version, which I didn't build. Well, this awesome street racer is finished, and it takes me back to the day when the pony cars were running the roads and they were the kings. Now, it's not an easy kit to build in the sense that you'll have to deal with some fit issues. There's also parting lines and the typical ejector pin marks from the molding technology of the day. But when you're done, it's a doggone good looking car, and it's a real attention getter on your shelf. So be careful. Make sure that you test fit everything. You may need to source some wheels for this version, but once you're done, it's a real good looking model, and if I were you, I'd buy one and put it on my shelf. We hope you enjoyed this premium step-by-step scale model kit review. So that you don't miss any more, please click on the icon in the lower right of any of our reviews and subscribe to our channel. And you could also find us on Facebook or our website, rideonreplicas.com. Thanks! This review is brought to you in part by Ryder's Hobby Shops, where the fun begins. Stop in to one of Ryder's 2 convenient Michigan locations where you'll find a full range of the latest hobby products, supplies, parts, tools, and paint. You'll find aisles and aisles of scale model kits, RC models, model rockets, Warhammer gaming, and railroading products. Stop in at Ryder's today and tell them Doug sent you.